Okay, so one of the video requests was that I make a tutorial of some kind, and what I came up with was a writing tutorial because that's just one of the things I'm good at, probably with the thing that I'm best at. So I think that that's the thing that I can most teach you about. And for those of you who don't know about my writing, if you're thinking, what does she know about writing? Why should I watch this video? Then you can. I'm going to put a link to my poetry that's on my website. I'm going to put a link to my books. Yeah, so then you can check that out. What else did I have? Okay, so like these tips, like I was like, for me personally, I didn't start out like a great writer. I started out loving writing, and with time, like if I kept on writing and writing, then I could look back and see the improvements that I made. So the more you write, the better you get. So never give up and just keep at it. And with time, you're gonna think, wow, like I'm amazing. And then with more time, you're gonna think, wow, I'm even more amazing. So, and these tips are just to help you along your way. Maybe it'll give you a few ideas of how to write or what to write or anything like that. So these are just a few tips on your path to being a writer. I realize you can't really see the words, but I'm gonna be reading it anyways, so it doesn't matter. Like I was looking for my bigger marker. I can't find it. Sorry, but I'm gonna be reading it anyways. Number one is foreshadowing. I learned this in English class in high school, and I paid attention because I did love to write. Foreshadowing is, if you don't know already, it's like you put tidbits of information, like in the beginning of the book, through the book, and that information will give you hints as to what's to come, and you can guess what's to come, or like, and then it just like doesn't make it a complete weird happening when something big happens. Then like you foreshadow the big thing that's happening, or even little things, so then it makes sense because it's consistent, and you see that it makes sense because, like, how do you say, because you saw it along the way, and you know that it's there in the story. Anyways, I'm going to shut up about that because I'm not making sense. I can tell in my head. But anyways, one example I have, I don't know if you've ever seen this, probably not. It's a movie that came out in British Columbia, I think Vancouver. It's a terrible movie. I saw it. It's a children's movie, actually, but I saw it when I was a teenager, when I was living in British Columbia, and to this day, I'm very passionate about how bad that was because of the foreshadowing in the movie that foreshadowed nothing. Like, for example, well, actually, okay, did I tell you the title already? It's called Once in a Blue Moon, but I call it Once in a Stupid Moon, Stupid Movie. That's what it's called. So in the beginning of the story, the kid, he's writing in this journal, and he says that he's aspiring to be a writer someday, and one day he's going to be a writer. And so I thought, okay, well, at the end of the book, maybe, like, I don't know, a contest where he writes a book, or, you know, like, I don't know, like he writes a poem and someone likes it, but like what's coming. But nothing happened with it. Nothing. It was useless information, completely pointless. And it was just garbage in it. Like, it's junk DNA. It's crap. Like, you don't put that in the story. Like, whether it's a movie or a book or whatever, like, it's the same concept because someone wrote it. It's the story. Like, it's useless information. Also, somewhere around the middle of the book, this kid, he opens up his stomach, and there's this kind of a clockwork inside. Like, he's I don't know, I wouldn't say a robot because it's not necessarily machinery, but it was like old clockwork inside of his stomach. And then I was like, okay, so he's a robot, or he's some kind of thing, and like maybe they're gonna explain it later what this is. They never explained it. They never brought it up again. It was crap. Pointless crap. Wow, I've been ranting for 4 minutes on this. This is gonna be a long video, but it was crap. It was useless information, and they shouldn't have put it in there. And I'm very passionate about that, about it being pointless. Okay, so moving on. Here also, if it's a novel or a movie or whatever, keeping interest. Like throughout the book, you would want to write things like always something happening, maybe an event, and even if it's not an event, it could just be like deep feelings. And deep feelings are interesting because we can relate to them. Like if you can relate to the emotion, then you're like, wow, this is really interesting, despite the fact that there's not necessarily explosions happening. Like so feelings are a good thing to fill the gaps where there's no big things happening. And even when there's big things happening, feelings again. Like I believe strongly in writing about feelings because that's really what makes people get attached to a book or a story. Where is this? Number 3. Okay, this is if it's a poem. Big words. Big words, like some people use them and that's their choice, but for me personally, I don't like putting big words in my poems because it's like most of the words are small, and then you suddenly find a big word, like I don't know, technological, Peter Panning, I don't know, some kind of like some big word, long, and the other words are small, and it makes it distracting because, and it breaks up the flow because like the flow is little word after little word, I don't know. And then you suddenly put something like that, it kind of it just, like I said, it distracts, and I don't like it. Like it doesn't feel like this. The poem doesn't feel like as powerful to me because if you stop and think about the big word, then you're not thinking about what the sentence is and what the meaning of the sentence is. Okay, number 4. Poetry. You can rhyme or not. When I first started writing poetry, I wasn't rhyming. Like you can see on the website, my earlier poetry wasn't rhyming, and it was decent poetry. But with time, I liked rhymes. For one, because to begin with, because it sounded nice, and because it was the thing that I knew was common, and I thought, okay, I'll try this out, and I liked it. And the thing that I really like about rhyming is that it challenges you to be more creative, like because you start off with one word at the end of a sentence, and you think, okay, what can I possibly do with that to connect it to something else, to another idea, to make the concept whole, and you think, what can I do, and it has to be something that rhymes. What I do often is I research words on the internet. It's like word rhymes, like .dictionary or .com or whatever, it rhymes with whatever, and I find a list of words and okay, which one applies and which one can I use, and then I think of the sentence that I can put together with it. And if you're trying to think of a way to make the word to make the sentence go with the word, you have to be very creative to make it work. So the sentence ends up being more beautiful, more composed, more interesting, and like, okay, like I wrote an example of something that I wrote in a poem, one of my first poem that I wrote about self-injury. I wrote, yes, grasping with need the ends of a serrated potion, rising face down from the depths of the ocean. So I was like, rising face down from the depths of the ocean, that's I like that. Like personally, I like that sentence. Like it feels good. It rhymes well. It's powerful. Okay, so that's what I mean by being more creative. Like it ends up coming out more impressive. I like that. Okay, what's that? Number 4, number 5, theme. You want to have a theme throughout your poetry, even like your book too. But like here, I was more thinking of the poetry. You want to have it's got to continue. Like if you keep changing the subject throughout the poem, then it gets confusing and you lose your thought and you don't really have this complete story. Like a poem can be like a story. It continues and then with beginning, middle, end, and it's a whole story. So you'll notice that throughout many of my poems that I have a storyline in it. Okay? Number 6, creating a storyline. For if you're writing a novel, or even if it's a poem, like for a novel, what I would do for my first 2 books that were science fiction books, I got a cartable, like a binder, and I would fill the pages with like the numbers of the chapters and how many chapters I would think I would have, and I would put the ideas that I wanted for each chapter in with each number of chapter. Okay, this part of the story, you add it to the story, and then you think, okay, I added that, and it's significant, therefore I need to add a foreshadowing. So then you think, okay, since I added that, like you go back and you add a foreshadowing somewhere in the story. Whereas if you added that information later and you'd already written the story, you have to go back, rewrite, think, okay, how am I going to replace this? How am I going to do it over again? And maybe you like how it was written, but you don't have a choice but to change it. Whereas if you make the foreshadowing first throughout the storyline, then you don't have to restart. Then it ends up being more, you end up having more of your ideas together. You can have more of a flow. So that's what I would do. I would put my stories together in a binder and each chapter together. Okay? Number 7, length of sentences. Like, that was a problem that I had when I was starting out, was the length of sentences. Was because if you write like a sentence that goes on for several lines, then you're like, you have to reread it because it gets confusing. So if you have to reread the sentence because it's confusing, then it's a bad sign because the person doesn't get the flow of the book. And you're like, what does that say again? And you have to read it a few times, and it's not, it isn't good. So basically, break up, if that happens, break up the sentence, find a middle and chop it in half or chop it in 3, and make it shorter so that the thoughts can get interrupted, so that you can stop, okay, end of sentence, okay, and next, okay? That was number, oh yeah, right, it can be too much of a mouthful if it's like a whole, a whole too big sentence. And, okay, yeah, so 7, 8. You can find inspiration from other authors. Like, I have favorite authors. I love S.E. Hinton. I love that poem by I think it's Robert Frost that was in S.E. Hinton. I love that, and I love the style that he has. And even though like I drew inspiration from them, I still found my own style. So what I really like is for you guys to find your own style. Despite the fact that you might find inspiration from a certain writer, you can find your own way, and you can be more unique. And unique is what really drives people to read more and more and be more interested in what you say, because it's very different from anything else that they've ever seen. So find inspiration, but find your own style. That was number 8. Number 9 is repetition of words. That's a big no-no also. It's very distracting. If you say like any particular word twice in the same sentence, then you end up being like, huh? Or just like, it's not quality. Use a different word. Like, use a different word that means the same thing. Replace that word to make the sentence more we'll say more impressive, I guess you could say, because it's not very impressive for a writer to be like limited in their words. Number 9. Number 10. When you're done what you're writing, reread it and learn from your mistakes, because like with time you can go like, okay, maybe my sentences were too long, maybe my words were happening too often, and you can learn from that. Oh, and one thing that I didn't put this on my cardboard, but I had someone point out this is what I learned from my writing, is said is dead. Like, don't use the word said all the time when a person talks. Put feeling into their words. What were they really meaning when they said? Like, was it she didn't said, she shouted, she gasped, she whined, she pleaded, you add passion, you add emotion to the word, not said. Said is dead. You can use said once in a while when you really can't figure anything out, but for the most part, your words should be unique. You can look it up online too. There are different words like to replace said, so that it can give you some ideas. There are a lot of words, so that's good. So use that. Number 11 is the last one. After you reread your book, if you're finished rereading the book or the poem or whatever, add new, go through, and you can find places where you're like, oh, I can really add on to this. I can make this deeper. I can make this more emotional. I can make this more impressive, more interesting, more explosional. So you add information as you go. So my suggestion is to reread it many times. Like, I must have read Lady Injury about 10, 15 times. Like, I was really sick of the book when I was done, but it was the better for it, because I reread it and it was better for it. So, okay, that was the end of this, and now I have this. Okay, as soon as I can get it up. I don't know if you can see the words. Contest, okay? My contest is that I want you guys to write me a poem. And that poem is going to be inspired by 2 sentences that rhyme, that I haven't made a poem out of, that I've had for a long time. And I figure that instead of making a poem for myself, I could give it to you guys. And maybe you could draw inspiration from those sentences and make your own poem. You know, make it flow, make a theme, make it interesting. And okay, I'll read you the sentences before I explain any more of that. It's dancing on the floorboards of midnight's darkest stage. She knows the script will end when she turns another page. I'll put those sentences in the information too if you didn't understand that very well. But yeah, send me your poem. The best poem will be put in a video that I'll make specifically for that poem. It won't be anything else in the video. It'll be dedicated to your poem. If you have a channel, I'll put a link to your channel. If you don't have a channel, but you have maybe a site where you put your poetry, I can put a link to your poetry, so it can be like a kind of a publicity for you. And if you do have a channel, you can make the video yourself and send it to me, and I'll put it up of you reading the poem. And if you don't have a channel, you don't want to be related to my self-entry channel, you can send me the poem and I'll read it in your name, and just maybe you can give a pen name so that no one knows it's you or something like that. So that, I think that would be really special, because I know that a lot of you love to write, and I think that, you know, a contest would, and having your writing, like someone wrote it the other day, I have no one to share it with. Well, I'd love to be able to give you someone to share it with. I have like a lot of people that will be able to watch this and be inspired by what you write. So yeah, that's about 20 minutes I'm coming on. I'll try to end it before 20 minutes, but that was my contest. I really hope that you guys like that idea. And anyways, if you have any questions about writing in general, put it in the comments or send me a PM. I'll answer you to the best of my ability. So yeah, do check out the links to my writing, to my book, Lady Injury. It's still selling. My first 2 books aren't selling at the moment. I'm going to have them republished soon, because I retracted them from the publishing company, so I'm going to have them republished. So those aren't going to be links in there, but I'm going to have Lady Injury in my poetry.